Welcome to the Your Limitless Leadership Podcast with Jenny and Brent Widman. Here, we believe leadership isn't just about titles. It's about how you show up in every aspect of life. Whether you're leading a business, building a legacy as an entrepreneur, guiding your family, or striving to lead yourself first, this podcast is for you. Join us as we dive into real conversations about growth, decision-making, and the courage it takes to lead with purpose. Get ready to be inspired, challenged, and equipped to become the limitless leader you are meant to be. This is your Limitless Leadership Podcast. Let's lead without limits. All right. Welcome to your Limitless Coach Podcast, your Limitless Leadership Podcast. And today with me, I'm really excited. And I know we've talked a little bit, but this one I just love because this is, and I honestly do not say that about everybody. Her name's Erin Hammer, and her story, just the past and what she has done. And I think what I love about her already the most is just her humbleness and who she is, because she has this phenomenal story and she just thinks it's normal. And it's far from normal, I guess, put it that way. And it's crazy because and it's straight transparency. We don't know each other that well, but when you talk to her, and I'll just say this, you feel like you've known her for years. And that's what I got from her right off the bat, just this caring nature and this, I don't know, you ever meet those people that just, you feel like you've known them for forever because they care so much and they just have that way about them. So I'm excited for this.
Thank you. That's so kind.
I'm going to introduce you, and I know I'm not going to do a due diligence, which is why I want to just dig in with you a little bit and hear your story. But one of her passions, if you will, is travel. And she couples travel with doing adventures or doing physical things that it sounds like you couple both of those together.
I try.
Yeah, which is most people don't do that. They go lay on a beach and sip daiquiris a lot of times, basically, and you're out climbing mountains, running. She's done marathons, ultra marathons. I want to hear about the jungle marathon in Brazil. Like, that's far from normal, the longest she's ever done. Mountain climbing, just hiking around the world. Kilimanjaro, I'll let you say, what was the other one?
Aconcagua.
We'll talk about that too. Just the highest peaks, and most recently a trek in Chile. She talks about, she put together this ocean rowing, and I believe, correct me if I'm wrong here, California to Hawaii is what it was
Correct.
going.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yep.
And then there were some hiccups there, basically, is what it was. But we overcome things. It's kind of what it is.
Yes.
And what I love most, or one of the best things, is she's from a town of about 600 people in northwest Minnesota, just a tiny little town, which is pretty cool that you can come from there and do the things that she's done. Growing up, she was, and I'll let her tell the story, so I'm going to give really cliff notes on this, but she was a nanny for a Pillsbury grandson in Jackson Hole, got her undergrad from Concordia here in Minnesota, started in banking. So she's in the banking industry. And you can tell that that's a means that she's really darn good at what she's done and done it for a long time. But it also is a means to the other things she gets to accomplish in life too. She has an MBA. Is it Carlson School of Management? Is that what it is?
Yeah,
okay.
I went through the executive program there. Yep.
Yeah, and if you don't know what Carlson School of Management, it's kind of the mecca here in Minnesota of education. When people talk in Minnesota about the Carlson School of Management, people know what you're talking about. So, and I didn't know that about her until she told me that, which is pretty cool. So, been in the financial services for, almost 30 years. She has a dog named George. And this is something too that says a lot about where you can come from and where you can go and how successful you can become. And it doesn't matter where you start. It's where you want to go. She was adopted from Korea, and she has two sisters that were also adopted, but they're not biological sisters. But the fact that you call them, and I'm sure by now, right, they're your sisters, but even thinking of it that way when you're not biological at the same time, that says a lot about who you are. So I'm excited to hear and maybe we just start there, kind of the evolution of Erin and how you've gotten to where you are today, some of the things you've done along the path, and then we'll dive a little deeper. But just tell me about you, like this, maybe start there, like when you were adopted, like you probably don't remember when you're adopted, maybe you were, but I'm guessing you're pretty little. Coming over here and just life here, living in a small town, and then growing up, and how'd you get to where you are?
Oh my goodness, that could be a long conversation too, but I'll try to keep it short. Yeah, I grew up in a small town called McIntosh, and as you mentioned, there's about 618 people on the population sign when I left, but very small town. My father was a science teacher, and then my mother had also been a teacher, but then also she actually had opened a small flower shop, and so she was kind of in that entrepreneurial space for that time in a very small town. I was 8 months old when I was adopted, and so yes, I do not remember anything about that, but I have a middle sister who's 3 years younger. She was 5 months, and then a younger sister actually who came along a little bit later, and she's 9 years younger. So we all, we grew up in this small town where pretty much everyone was Norwegian German, and then there was us. And so pretty much everyone knew who we were. There wasn't a lot of guessing work in there.
Oh my goodness.
But it was great. When you grow up in a small town, you don't know any different, and so everyone knows who you are. Everyone, that's Mr. Hammer's daughters. And so, him being in the school also, it's just small town living. It was great. One of the benefits was absolutely the fact that you got to be involved in a lot of things. And so these small high schools, we had like 5 different towns that were all consolidated to make up our school. And so, you get to be active in sports, arts, all of the stuff, and it's they need you to be involved in order to have an actual program, and so they're encouraging it. But that was a great,
I love it,
starting place, right? And so you get to try different things, figure out what you like, what you don't like, what you want to be involved with, and I guess I find that very fortunate. There's obviously some other maybe challenges with small towns, but, back then I had no clue. But I think one of the cool things that I did was I kind of always knew I'd leave this small town. I somewhere in the back of my head, that was just what I felt and what I knew I was going to do. But I was given the opportunity to be a nanny out in Jackson Hole, Wyoming. And, for a kid that had never been on a plane, this was kind of a big deal. And so 3 days after this was right after graduation. So 3 days after graduation from high school, I had been accepted to Concordia College in Moorhead, starting in the fall. Yeah. And so for the summer, I got on a plane, flew to Jackson Hole, and I was a nanny for 2 boys that were, their family was the Pillsbury family. And so there's that, Pillsbury connection to Minneapolis or, Minnesota area. And it was phenomenal. Seeing another part of the country, for one thing, fell in love with the mountains, fell in love with Jackson Hole. The family was amazing. They were just, it was a true joy. And just being able to experience another side of life that was very different from the way I'd grown up. We were a small town. We had, I never wanted for anything, but we certainly didn't have excess, and there wasn't any privilege or anything along those lines.
Very different.
Exactly. And so seeing this other side of life was just amazing. And it was, I laugh because one of the things that I was introduced to was a bagel. I'd never had a bagel. So, like, Nancy, the mom I worked for, she's like, hey, this is a bagel. I'm like, what do you do with it? But no, now it's a favorite. But so anyways,
Goodness.
yeah, great opportunity. And I came back to Minnesota, went to college, did my undergrad at Concordia Moorhead. Great opportunity. Just, you meet so many different people with so many different interests. I did psychology and communications and psychology were my, focus, but I wasn't really sure what I was going to do with that. But during that time, I started working for Norwest Bank, which is what it was called back then, as a teller. And so that was my college job. And so when I graduated Concordia, I moved down to the cities and I continued working for the bank. And then I just kind of explored different opportunities within the bank, because I think that's one of the benefits of banking as a whole. There's just so many areas you could go. You could go trust, commercial lending, investment services, retail banking, so many different areas you can explore and skills that you can acquire. And so, I started as a teller and kind of moved my way through the system. I did a short stint. I actually moved back to Grand Forks area in a relationship that I was in for a little bit, and I, tried my hand at sales, like hardcore sales. I was working for the Grand Forks Herald. Definitely a totally different, skill set going on there. But I moved down to Houston, Texas for a short stint. Yes. And then moved back to the cities. And so pretty much I've been back in the Twin Cities area since about the year 1999. And then back into banking. And so worked my way from small business banking to into commercial lending. And so that's kind of where I've stayed for the most part. I tried I left banking for a little bit and wanted to try an entrepreneurial role. And I went to work for a client actually, who was doing, he was selling software as a SaaS, software as a service back then. And so he was a provider of NetSuite. And so this was when NetSuite was first taking off, and it's an ERP system in the cloud that was founded by Oracle. And I think actually it's now back with Oracle, but I came in and I helped him sort of build a backbone for his small business. And, it was either sell or raise capital. We ended up selling, and then just a great opportunity. I don't know if I've ever been so stressed in my entire life, but it was just, I learned so much, and I would never not have wanted to choose that and try that experience.
That's awesome.
Yeah. But, came back into financial services, and that's where I've stayed. I'm at Highland Bank right now, and I love it. It's a small family-owned bank. We're in the Twin Cities region, and we have one location up in Ely. We acquired a small bank a couple years ago, and they had a location up there. But it's fantastic. I think that the true benefit of a small bank is that it's for those clients that value a personal relationship with their banker. And so being able to call them up, text them, whatever the case may be, and being able to have someone that that you can contact, get a hold of, have a conversation with, for those clients that truly value that, someone that knows their business, I think it's the best fit.
What is like and then I'll while you're on this, because when you listen to this, right, who is your wheelhouse that you help out more often than not?
Yep. So, we do all kinds of loans. And so we've got commercial real estate, we've got investment real estate, regular C&I, retail clients. I would say a sweet spot would be someone that needs a credit, $1 million up to $1 million to $5 million. We certainly do loans that are much larger than that. We can handle that. But a lot of our clients are, family-owned businesses or, businesses that were acquired by, that were a family-owned. And so it's really fun. And you feel like you're adding some value and, helping to make a difference, making banking easy. You might have misconceptions about, what's going on, or how do you bank, or all the different technologies that are available these days. And it's just trying to make that as simple as possible so that they can focus on their business. That's my goal.
Yeah.
Try to do that every day. But
that's because it is. It's almost like those smaller businesses that you're helping fulfill their dream, really, is what it comes down to.
I like to think so.
Yeah.
It's
Like
possible.
that.
Yeah.
And having somebody like you that understands, I mean, even talking about your dad and your mom and then where you came from. How did that, I got to ask this because I don't know if I told you this. I'm from a town at same thing, 400 people, and growing up, right? So I understand.
I'm from a city then.
Yeah. But understand, like, everybody knows who you are and all that. How did that, and I don't know if you've ever been asked this, but how did that shape who you are now as a person, or growing up, or what, like, how did that shape just your personality and just who you are? And again, try to take the humble out of the equation as much as you possibly can. I know that's not easy.
I think there's a couple things. Like, I remember being younger and, just kids can be pretty cruel if you're different in any way. And so, whether it's you look different, or maybe you're overweight, or you're underweight, or your hair's funny, whatever the difference may be, kids can point it out. And so, I go back and forth with whether that's learned, or, to say something in a negative way. I feel like that's learned versus curiosity and asking a question kind of thing. And so I absolutely remember some moments where I'd come home crying and my dad would be ready to march out the door and stand up for me. But building that resilience at a young age and just, through life, I think my family did a really good job of just, making sure that I felt like, what, you're special, you were chosen by us, you were adopted and chosen, right?
Yeah.
And so growing up with that sort of in the back of your head, you felt like you could, it doesn't matter. Like the outside, validation of, either positive or negative, you have to, build that up inside yourself that you're worth whatever you're, setting out to do. And so that's, harder to do as a kid, but, that's something that you can keep practicing and get better at, and, hopefully take into adulthood and
love it.
Make sure that you stay humble.
I ask because it's like right there when you just said, make sure you stay humble, and in that caring nature and everything that goes with that as well. You can just tell, like, it's who you are. It's ingrained in you to treat others well. And maybe that's part of it, because you might have looked a little different. That you were that person at times, but how it make you feel. I don't want to put that onto other people as well.
Yeah. We all have our moments.
For sure. Yeah.
But absolutely, especially in this day and age.
Love it.
Kindness, right? Just try to be.
It's not that hard, is it? It's not. Just treat people well and meet them. It's the old adage of meet them where they're at, but understand, because we all have stuff. All of it. Every single person has stuff. We're all going through something, or have something, or been through something. And I think that's the giving a little grace and kindness at times too.
Oh, I love that word, grace. That's my favorite. Yeah.
But I hope people understand at times that it's probably not anything against you. It's what's within us that's making us get frustrated.
Yeah, exactly. And you get older and you start digging into that and you realize those things. And so absolutely.
One of the things,
a little wiser.
Yeah, well, you hope so. That's the path. Yeah. One of the things that really intrigued me about you when we talked is I asked you, I can't remember what it was. I think it might have been the Brazil thing, why you did that. And you said, somebody asked me, I'm paraphrasing here. So somebody asked me and I said yes. And that's what made me go, Wow, that says a lot of that little phrase says a lot about who you are, because your background shows that you just say yes to things, even though there's the unknown, or what do I do, or I don't know how to do that. How did you, this sounds funny, but what was the first like adventure, or maybe it was physical thing you did that kind of led into everything else?
Yeah. I think that's always been my mindset. Like, I'm willing to try anything. Like, I have no fear about
I just love it.
anything. Like, why wouldn't you? Right? You might love it. You might hate it. What's the worst that's going to happen? And I think I've always had that mindset since just being younger. Like, all growing up, I was always willing to, try something new, explore, take a different class, whatever the case may be. And I had, that's how I ended up being a nanny in Wyoming, and I'd never been on a plane before. And so taking that sort of mindset, I hadn't really ever thought of myself as athletic. Like, during high school, I played sports and did all of that, but I was never like the, star on the team or anything. I was a cheerleader, and that wasn't really exactly the, athletic, probably sport that it is today in some areas, but it was cool back then. I'm just gonna say that. But I didn't actually. I started running like later in my 20s, and so I did like my first like little 10K, and I fell in love with it. And just it was kind of, I signed up on a whim with a friend, ran the race, and then the next thing I knew, I signed up for the Twin Cities Marathon, like the following fall. And so, I wasn't breaking any records for speed, but it was so fun. And just having that experience, I just kept it up. And so running was just part of my routine going forward from there. And then I went back to grad school, like in my late 30s, and I met one of my just truest best friends in grad school, and he was actually working for a nonprofit at the time, and he was putting together a service/adventure trip down to Africa. And so we spent a week in the Rift Valley in Kenya, and we helped build a school. And then we did a week in Tanzania, climbing Kilimanjaro. And so great pairing, right? And then being able to see, part of the country. But we did this Kilimanjaro hike, and, all the training that led up to it, but then also just the actual climb. I think there were about 7 of us that did this together. It's just that sort of bond that you build doing that sort of activity, I think it's rare. You hear about it in other sorts of small group experiences where you just, you're all going through something that no one else knows what's going on, right? And so you're able to build that relationship, build that experience, and just have that special, memory, have that experience to take with you. And so just kind of fell in love with it. And so then, the next thing we knew, a couple years later, we had signed up to do Aconcagua down in South America, which is the highest peak there. And again, just the people that you meet on these adventures are just, they're like-minded. So they love, finding these challenges that they can push themselves towards. But that's also just the love of being outside, and accomplishing something and training for something is just, I got addicted. So
there's something about, like you're talking about, going through hard things with other people. And when you do hard things like that, and I want to come back to that, but when you do hard things like that, it makes other things seem a lot easier because
yeah, absolutely. And it just kind of minimizes all of the noise, right? And so everything is figureoutable. That's one of my favorite sayings, it just is. And it's either going to be figured out for the positive, or if it's a negative, maybe it's just something that it's a lesson, right? And a little as cliche as that sound, it's how it is. And so you either, move forward or you go back, but I prefer to move forward. And so, that's a great example. Like the whole hike up Aconcagua, we took about a 14-day period just so you could acclimate to the altitude. I got up to summit day, or we were at base camp, and you had to get up at 3 a.m. It's 60 below wind chill, the wind's going crazy, it's nuts.
What?
Yeah. Oh, you're getting up at 3, you're having some hot liquid, putting on your clothes in your freezing tent, and getting your crampons on, and mask over your face, and then your nose is running and it's freezing your face. It's just, super cool. Like,
yeah.
This is,
You're selling it hard right now. You are.
I know. Doesn't everyone want to do that? But it was, just getting up. And so you're up early and you start the hike to the summit. And I just remember, I'd never felt this before, but I got up about, I don't know, maybe a third of the way up to summit area. And it wasn't that long, but it's steep, right? And it's just cold. And so I remember we were all kind of hiking in a row, and I was looking down at my feet, and all of a sudden I stopped. And usually you just kind of tell yourself, right foot, left foot, right foot, left foot. And my brain wasn't connecting with my feet. And so I just remember standing there and looking at my feet and my poles, and I could not move. And so I ended up having one of the porters come over, and I couldn't go forward. And I saw my adventure partner, Ryan. He was up, leading the charge, and he just waved and keep going. And you just got to persevere. But I ended up turning back. And I was, it was so disappointing, but it's just, what can you do? I had hypothermia. So, or beginning stages of it, I guess. And that's what they had told me, but I couldn't get warm. And it was just the craziest feeling. But certainly going through that, and then realizing that, you gave it all you had. And this time it didn't work out the way you wanted, but it was a great experience up to that. And then just having gone through that, now I know. And so we'll see if I get back up there again. But
that's the very definition of pushing yourself to the limit, which, what's
but
thing you read that most people only push themselves to about 40% of what they can accomplish. You're going to 100% of what you can.
I'm trying.
Yeah.
But so that was, it was a great experience.
Wow.
But, we met this gal from Denmark, Pernilla, who she kept us in stitches. She was just so funny. But she had done this jungle race in the Amazon the previous year. And so she was telling us about this race, and we're like, this sounds super cool. And so it's this 7-day stage race. You're doing about 160 miles through the Amazon. And so it's through the Amazon. And so it's hot, it's sticky, there's fire ants, there's, all the pumas, there's all kinds of fun. We saw a few tarantulas, just fun stuff. And so we signed up. And so then the following year, we flew down to Brazil and did this Amazon race. And
how far was it?
Time of my life. It was about 160 miles broken. You did about a marathon a day, and then one overnight stint, and then a shorter distance on the last day. But you carried all your food, carried all your hammock and your whatever, your change of clothes that you had on your back. And you ran these tiny little trails that were they were made up by natives going through the jungle. And pretty much it was their transportation pathways through the jungle. And so you're running on these little trails. Sometimes they were marked well, sometimes not as well. But it was just it was fantastic. But you'd run your amount for the day, come to a base camp and hang up your hammock, get some boiled water. That was the only thing that the race provided. Make your, yummy dehydrated food.
Yeah. Yep.
And then you'd spend your night like picking ticks off you from the jungle
Really?
run. Oh yeah. And just, fun stuff like that. But, again, you're building this community with these people in this race with you and meeting people from all over the world. Like, just, that's the crazy part. It's phenomenal. And so, you make friends from all over, from, with people that have this same sort of love for adventure and travel. And
how long did that take you?
That was 7 days.
And you did basically a marathon every day.
Yep.
Were you running it? And not that this matters. Running it, I just want to wrap my mind around it. Running it, hiking it, like what was the...
All of it. Run, hike, walk,
okay.
Swimming through swamps, across the rivers. There's points where you're in, knee-deep mud and you're trekking through. And, it was an adventure.
Yeah, I mean, paint the picture on that a little bit. When you're sleeping, you're talking about a hammock. Is there room for tents, or is it just you?
No, it's self-sufficient. So you're carrying your hammock with
whatever you can bring. Okay.
And then you're setting up between trees in these. So
you're just out in the open, basically.
Yep. There was a place there's a couple times where it was almost on the outside of a little village or in a sheltered area, secluded sheltered area, but you're sleeping in a hammock. So
yeah,
it's and a covered one so that bugs wouldn't get you at night. But
was there anything that you saw happened? Anything stood out with you? Anybody else? I think you know what I'm asking. Like I don't know, snakes, ticks, like you said, pumas. Anything?
There's a whole, like in the beginning of the race, there was this area of the race called Puma Alley, and it was about a mile long that was famous for pumas, right? And so I wanted this, like, how cool would that be?
Yeah, that's true.
Like, awesome, right? But unfortunately, I didn't see any. But some people were like, hinting that they might have heard or, glimpsed one, but I don't know that anyone really actually saw one. But for the most part, they'll stay away from people and hit that. But actually, to the point, I had no doubt that this was just fun. It was just you have to go through all the challenges and stuff. But there was some serious stuff that we had a gentleman that I think he was from, I don't know, maybe Norway or Sweden area, but he had he was allergic to bees. And so, like, the very first part of the race, the first day when we were starting off, the runners had hit a hornet's nest, and so they were just everywhere. And so everyone was just 20 stings, and they were all over, and it was just, it was kind of painful, and it was just a crazy way to start the race. But one of the gentlemen ended up, severely having a reaction, and we had to go get his EpiPen, and he ended up sitting out for a couple of days, but he did come back and finish the marathon portion. There was an actual 4-day portion, and I think he did that. But those things happen, and it's kind of scary. But
just the way you minimize it, I just think about if somebody.
Well, I don't minimize it for him, though. Seriously.
No, not him. Just in general, like if somebody got stung by a hornet in their backyard, they'd be like, "Oh," and you're like, "Oh," you'd have like 20 stings, and they'd be painful. But we just kept going, and that's just the way it was. I love it. That's the thing, though. Like when you do things like that, you've committed to it. Like you're already in it. You might as well keep going because it's already hard. You've already trained for it. Why not just keep? Yeah, I just love that mentality. I gotta ask, and maybe this is tough too, but where do you think that came from? Like, how did you develop? Because that's almost a muscle that you develop over time. How did you develop that?
I was I've thought about this a lot because I've been asked that before, and I don't know. I think it's always just been ingrained in me. Like I'm not fearful. I will try anything, and my whole philosophy has always been, why wouldn't I? Because I don't ever want to be that person that's afraid, right? Like afraid to, look around the corner and see what could be next, because it could be amazing. And I'd rather think of that, and just having all these experiences, like, I don't know, it's been ingrained. And I'm not sure where I got that, because it certainly wasn't from my parents. They stayed in their small town for pretty much their whole life, and they weren't really big travelers, but yeah.
I mean, and maybe part of it is like, this is where I grew up, but I know I'm capable and want more in my life. I want to just do things basically over time. So yeah, that could be
Yeah.
I mean, okay, I got to ask this too, because you touched on this a little bit last time we talked, and that is how you did it. And I don't want to do this. I'm asking you to tell the story, but what she did, I believe, is you had to go raise money, and you went from California to, I believe, Hawaii is what the plan was.
The plan
happened, but how did that come about? What were the ups and downs there, and then what happened there? I got to hear this.
Yeah. So I'll step back. So my good friend that I met in grad school that was putting together the Kilimanjaro.
Sounds like this dude is the guy that gets you into all of this stuff.
I'm going to blame Ryan. But he actually, we did a lot of these adventures, and it was kind of like, it was just like our adventure side of our souls just kind of clicked.
I'll do it if you do it.
We tell people, like, not everyone has that sort of love for trying these types of ventures. And so when we met, it was like, I see you, and it worked out. And so, so actually we did the Amazon race together. And then when we were there, we met some individuals that, we thought this was in the fall. And so we met these individuals, and we all kind of just had a great time and clicked. And we decided that we'd meet in March, which is over my birthday, actually. We'd meet in March in the UK. And so that whole meeting was, let's think of, some other adventure that we could experiment with or try out. And then we'll put that plan together. And so when we met in March, we met outside of London. This group of us, there were five of us there, and we just kind of hashed some ideas around. And then this Great Pacific Race came up, and this was 2016 would have been their second actual inception. It ran every 2 years back then. There'd only been one previous. And so what it was an ocean rowing expedition that started in Monterey, California, and then ended in Honolulu, Hawaii. So about 3,000 nautical miles either way. But again, how fun could that be? I've never rowed before, I had never rowed before. I don't know, I was never a boat person growing up, but we ended up.
So you're not a boat person. Never rowed.
I haven't been. No.
Really person. You're just like, why not?
Why not? But I like rowing, so Ryan and I put our 2-person team together, and it's an undertaking, and so it costs a lot of money. It's just there's a lot to it. There's a lot of training and certifications that we needed to get, and so we had our 2-person team together. We did. Thankfully, we did have a corporate sponsor that we were very thankful to. We were very lucky to to have them on board and support us. And so then we raised money, and we were able to raise money and then donate every single penny that we raised to our charity of choice, which was Children's Minnesota. And so, or the Children's Hospital in St. Paul.
Yeah.
So just having that cool message was, being able to have some fun, but then also have that aspect of it and doing something great with hopefully an end result, giving back to the community.
How did you get sponsors? How did you raise money? And how did you train?
Yeah. So Ryan's job, actually, he actually works for a nonprofit now, and his job is fundraising. And so he's an expert.
Okay.
He's got that down. It comes second nature to him. And so being able to make the right connections, we did a lot of events where we would, just promote what we were doing. We had other corporate sponsors that we partnered with where we'd be able to, highlight them, but then also raise money for, just being able to get our message out, I guess. And so thankfully, luckily, people thought it was pretty cool and something different.
For sure, yeah.
Not like we've got a lot of ocean rowing in Minnesota. So it wasn't really heard of around here. But, they'd had this, the Atlantic race, that had been going on for, 15, 20 years. And so this Pacific side, this was newer. And so super fun. But, we went over to the UK, and we had these boat builders that specialized in ocean rowing boats, where the owner and his employees had all done different ocean races at different times. So they were the experts. And so they built our boat custom from the ground up. And we were able to go over there, get our certifications. We had to get yacht master, sea survival, regular first aid, just all of the extra stuff that you need, just in case. And then being able to navigate the waters. And so we had solar panels on our boat just to be able to power up some things for our radios and navigation system, that kind of thing. But, we had a water maker, but then we also had a pump water maker in case that went out. And so just all these little things that you had to put together. Because,
you don't think about, yeah.
Yeah. And so the world record for a 2-person team had been 45 days. And so our thought was, okay, if we can just do 44 days, that'd be pretty cool. You can get in the Guinness Book of World Records. And so why not shoot for that? But and so it was a lot. We had to get a whole supply list together. We had to get all these certifications, all our training time. How long
did that take you? All the stuff. How long did all those things? Because it's one thing to do the thing.
Yeah.
It's another, if I sit here and listen to you and all the stuff that you've done, it's one thing when it's game day. It's another thing when it's all the things and the practice and the prep and all the things that go with it that you simply just figured out. You just figured it out.
That's part of the fun, though, too, right? And putting together, the journey, right? Versus the end goal. But we had about a year. And so we committed to it in, March, April timeframe. And then it was the following June 6th of 2016 that we actually we launched. And so we started the race. And so we had about a little over a year.
Okay.
In order to do that. Yeah.
And how did it go?
It was, it was the hands down one of the best experiences in my entire life. Just the whole of it. But we started, so we were able, due to weather, we were able to launch at about 6 p.m., I think, on that Saturday. And, we had a 2-person team. You're coming off you have to cross the continental shelf, which is a couple miles off the shore of California up there. And it can be crazy because there's currents that run this way and that. And so for a 2-person team, it can be a little bit more challenging because you don't have the manpower. But, luckily we were able to get off the shelf. We were, started Saturday, we hit Thursday, and we had weather start picking up. And so, we're hearing of storms. We've got a ground crew that's letting us know what's going on. We've gotten into a rhythm. We would, make breakfast this time. For the most part, our schedule was 8 hours. We'd row together. And then overnight, we do 2 hours on, 2 hours off and switch off. And so, it's a race. You want to keep moving.
Yep.
But so that Friday, we had crazy waves. I mean, it was so fun. If you're surfing, if you've ever tried surfing, it was just, you're going up and down. And, I don't have the GoPro footage that Ryan, still has, hopefully, but you're surfing over these big waves. And we just made so much, we made up for so much time, over the still water.
Really?
And so, it was so fun, just crazy. And so then that Friday night, because the winds were still crazy, we decided to para-anchor for the evening, and just for safety reasons, you don't want to be out there by yourself, probably, just in case, in crazy waves like that. So we para-anchored, and then we got up the next morning, and some other stuff had happened. Our, safety beacon had flown off in the wind, but, we were fine. We got up, and Ryan was adjusting our navigations for the day, and I was, boiling some water for coffee, because, coffee is life.
Yeah.
So we were sitting in there, our boat, and I saw the corner of my eye this just monster wave come. And so it capsized us. We rolled. You're tethered in, but we rolled. And then I remember swimming up to the top and kind of grabbing our coffee cups and that kind of stuff. And then I was crawling back into the boat, and this is Saturday morning. And I was like, oh crap. I had this shooting pain go up my arm. And so I got into the boat, and it felt horrible. And so then I was thinking, okay, maybe I can duct tape it, or I can splint it, or do something. But as time went on, it blew up, and we finally called into the medic. And at any given time, there were two, safety boats, or boats that belong to the race to help in case something happened. Yeah. Right? And so at any given time, they should have been about 3 days away from any of the racers. And so one of the boats could have picked us up probably around Monday, but being able to get to us, but then also figure out a way to meet each other and climb into the sailboat kind of thing, could have been a challenge. And my wrist was not good, and so part of the race registration fee was help support having the Coast Guard on call, and so being able to call them in case of emergencies, kind of thing. And so California Coast Guard actually came out and picked us up. I think must have been that Monday as well. But they came in the helicopter, dropped down the basket into the water, and just like in the movies, it was so the guy swam over to us. We had to put on our safety suits, and we climbed into the basket, and he hauled us up, and I went straight to the hospital, leaving our boat out there. It had a tracker on it, but I fractured my wrist, actually this one, and so they put a plate and screws in there, and it was such a bummer. I feeling that defeat, and then I think more, for Ryan, for my partner, who was fully capable and able to move forward, or carry on if he could have found, if this hadn't happened. But it's heartbreaking. You did all this work, and you put this all together, and you had this adventure, but I can, and even at the time, it's humbling, right? And so failures, you just have to take it as it is, and you learn from it, and like I said, hands down, still the best experience, I think, just as far as like putting together an adventure and, all the planning that we did. And then, the bonus was, at the end of the whole adventure, we were able to raise over 150,000 for the hospital. And so
that's
that
cool.
Felt amazing. And so it was worth it.
Kind of makes up
for
it.
Sure. Yeah, exactly.
I could have this conversation for hours, like just what you have done. And I don't know, it's hard to put into words sitting on this side, listening, because watching you go back to the place where it happened and when it happened and what you did and the people that you surrounded yourself with, and even your quotes, man. Everything is figureoutable. That's a good one. Failure, take it as it is. You just said that. Why wouldn't I? Why not? Just that type of mentality that I hope that when people, not even listen to this, but when people talk to you, I hope they take that away. And because I have to think that you make people around you better. You just do, like listening to you and the things you've done and just having this conversation, it's perspective.
Oh, thank you for that. I hope so. I think one of the things that you had mentioned was just, like leadership as a whole. And I had said, it comes in so many different forms and so many, it's all relative, right? And so like what we look up to or what we admire, the traits, the qualities, all of that, it doesn't come in that sort of
doesn't come in a title.
Nope. Picture of maybe what you are taught in school or, your old conceptions of having the title or moving up the career ladder, that kind of thing. And so I think from a very young age, I did strive for those things. And I always wanted to get that title or be involved in this. And, I think it started as being, when I was my senior class president. I'm like, yeah, this is cool. I kind of like this. And boss people around, whatever. But, or having younger sisters, right? And so being able to be multifaceted to me is it's an attribute that I admire in other people. And so being able to have someone that has dimension in their life so that they have different perspectives, I think it just makes you a lot more curious, which, hopefully builds more empathy and just thoughtfulness around, making decisions.
That is the definition right there. And just, I don't know, just listening to you and like you said, a title's one thing, but working within people and figuring things out when it doesn't go the way you want to, or knowing that things aren't always going to end up the way you want to, and you just keep going, but you're helping all those people around you. And then you feel empathy for the Ryan that couldn't do the thing, because that's all leadership. It really is. And you are the very definition of that. So thank you. Thank you so much for being on.
Thank you.
Yeah, I love it. I appreciate it. And if somebody wants to reach out to you, whether it's business-wise or misadventure, how will they reach out to you?
Sure. I'm on LinkedIn, Erin Hammer. You can find me easily. I work for Highland Bank. It's on our website, highland.bank. And so our Highland at Highland Banks at highland.bank. Yeah. I'm always happy to talk travel, adventures, and we didn't touch on that, but, travel is my passion. And as I've gotten older and maybe try to balance the, the joints in my body a little bit better, I've done a lot more hiking. And so I've absolutely kind of tamed that a little bit, not as much running, but I love to travel. I always love to talk travel and or banking. If you're looking for small bank that values you, absolutely, I'd love to talk to you as well.
Yeah, if there's one person to go to, you would be it. That's for sure, because that's I love it. Thank you so much for being on
Thank
here.
you, Brent. I really appreciate this opportunity.
Yeah.
It was fun.
Thanks for joining us on the Your Limitless Leadership Podcast with Jenny and Brent Widman. We hope today's conversation inspired you to think differently about leadership, not just in your career, but in every part of your life. Remember, leadership starts with leading yourself first. It's about taking action, making bold decisions, and showing up with purpose. Now, it's time to take what you've heard today and put it into practice. Whether it's in your business, your community, your family, or your own personal growth, start leading without limits. You have the power to become the leader you're meant to be. Until next time, keep pushing your boundaries and leading with purpose.